Hello YouTube. I just finished making this piece right here. I'm going to be having a video that shows my step-by-step process of how I built this piece right here, especially the portion of the arm, how the arm is suspended and also holding the lantern, and how I did the, the breaking through the picture kind of look. So I hope you hang out for the entire video and enjoy. Get ready to start on the next project. This is going to be another gift for the wife. It's going to be a birthday present, and as you can see, just by the items you see on my bench here, it's going to be Halloween horror kind of themed. What I'm going for is there's a lot of cool like 3D image kind of popping out pictures out there, and I've always wanted to kind of make one, so I want to make one. But I want to make one that's a little different that I haven't really seen yet. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using obviously the skeleton, and then I'm going to be using the lantern. What I want to do is I want to kind of give it the look that the skeleton is coming out of the picture frame holding the lantern, almost as if he's like looking into a dark room just to see what's going on inside the room. So obviously I'll have the rib cage is going to have to be cut down to only, so this way only so much protrudes out, the skull and everything, then the arm with the hand. Now this arm's not going to come all the way through. That's why I'm not too worried about it not having a hand. If I decide I want it to look like it's coming more through, I think I have an extra one I could put on there. And then obviously the lantern itself. Now lantern is kind of one of those solar deals, but what I liked about it, it has like that natural flicker style light bulb in it with the more obscured kind of glass on it, which to me kind of gives it more of like an older look. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be bypassing the whole solar aspect and pretty much going right to the wires right here. And then what I'll do is I'll probably on the bottom, I'll probably put a small switch down here to where what you want. So you literally just flip the switch on, it'll come on, and then it'll go off when she shuts it off. Or I might do the same thing I did with that other gift I just made for that candle thing where it had the timer on it. It's actually set for like 12-hour increments. So like if she turned it on in the evening, it'll automatically shut off, and then the next evening it automatically comes on. She's kind of played with the other one already and realized that that's what it does. It'll automatically come back on in the evening hours, and it shuts itself back off, which is kind of cool. So I might go that route too. I'm not sure yet, but this is going to be the next project I'm going to be starting with. So hopefully it works out like I wanted to, and let's get started. I guess you can say step one is to figure out exactly how I want the skeleton to sit within the frame. So you can see what I got going on here is I put the frame on my workbench. I let it overhang the end, so this way I can suspend him up and down like that. Have this little makeshift stand here, so this way from the floor up on the same measurement, so this way it's not like sagging or tweaking, throwing off my sight line. Now the skeleton, unfortunately, I was originally going to be using this for a different project, so I ended up cutting off the neck support that held the skull on. Now once I get done, I'll be rebuilding that anyways, so I'm not too worried about it. But for now, just so I can use have the skull on there for this reference point, I just stuck a piece of wood inside there and just have some tape holding it in place, and that's all that's for. But what I'm going to be doing is just kind of eyeballing how I want it to sit in here. Now I don't want him to look like he's falling out of the opening. I just want him to look like he's just coming through. But I would like to be able to have a little bit of this, spine portion right here, so it looks like he's coming through the picture frame. So I'm gonna put it like right here, so this way I know I have that. And I'm just gonna kind of play with my pitch a little bit. One, I want to make sure the skull doesn't hit the top, and then make sure that that it's not too high neither. That might be fine right there. I might be taking off a little more than what I want, but it'll be okay. So and then what I'll do is I want to come right about there. So what I think I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make a little line here and there. And what that's going to be is that's going to be my reference lines of where I'm going to be cutting this off, straight off. And then what I'll do is I might leave a little extra just so I can, kind of finesse it a little bit. But
that's kind of what I'm going to start with, and hopefully it works out and I don't mess this one up. Alright, after a lot of looking at it and making sure that my line on both sides is the same, it is, I made a reference point straight across here, and then my reference point that I originally drew when I was on the picture frame, and then just used the, just a straight edge to those lines. You can, and then what I did is I figured wherever my line fell here, I figured the ribs are going to be pretty symmetrical, being that this thing is, made in a mold. So I did is I pretty much just took, the line from where it would have fell on that rib to this rib, to try to make sure that I have a straight line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by cutting off the ribs and just cutting it right at the, to a certain point. I don't want to cut it all off because I think some of this might end up staying depending on the angle. So I don't want to lose some of it. So I'm essentially going to take off a little at a time until I can figure out exactly what I want. Now all I'm using is, you could use all kinds of things to cut it. I'm using one of these. It's on my Dremel. It's a little blade. It's kind of for like tile and stuff like that. So it has a bunch of little diamond, things on there. It's kind of good for this plastic because it makes a lot of powder. It makes a little bit of a mess, but it's easier on the plastic. It's not going to grab it, chip it, and knock and take big old chunks out of it. So that's why I'm going to use this. Okay, that's going to be my starting point. I have a feeling that I might be using this lower section right here, but I'll find that out as I get a little further along. It just depends on where within the picture frame it's going to sit. Because if I wanted to come all the way, up this high, then I'm probably gonna need that. If I want to bring them down a little lower, then I probably won't need to. But I have a feeling I'm gonna need that extra piece. So as I get a little further along, I will figure out exactly how much of this I need to cut and use. All right, so I made it to this point real fast. Just a quick brief of what I'm gonna do. I traced the frame out onto this thin piece of wood. It's about 3/67 inch thick. And I traced out, the area of the open area of the frame. I added the extra bit of spline to the bottom here. So, and I have my center line. So what my plan is this is gonna go right here, just below that line. So this way it goes just behind the picture frame. So it looks a little bit more like it's coming out from behind, not like dead in the middle. And then to support this area, I'm just gonna cut myself like a 2x4, because you're not gonna see it anyways, into a wedge shape that's gonna go from here down, on this backside right here where it's gonna be hidden. It'll be painted black, so it'll blend right in. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna allow me to glue and staple it to the back of this, so it gives me a nice little platform. And then once I anchor this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this location screw right here, since there's already one there. I'm gonna pull that screw out and just use a longer screw, run that screw through right into that piece of wood, and that's gonna essentially make this to where it's nice and rigid and it's not gonna move. And then I'll just figure out how I'm gonna lock the skull in, and then how I'm gonna do the arm and reinforce the arm. But I'm gonna start by getting this fixed into place and get it the way I want it. Gluing the edges down if I need to, and then we'll go to the next step. All right. So what I did is I made a cardboard template first. What I did is I took a paint can, I stuck a paint can on here to hold it for me, and I just measured it out and cut a piece of cardboard to match, essentially the curves I needed to kind of match the curve of the spine. I just took a piece of 2x. So what that'll do is that'll end up being nailed or stapled there. I also have to mark where it goes, but by the time I put that where it's supposed to be, I put a screw in there, so now you can see it's gonna hold itself nice and rigid there. So I'm not gonna have to worry about it sagging or anything like that. And the next step is just gonna be to, staple that down, glue it, screw this to it, anchor it down here, and then fix the skull on here at the angle I want, and I'll be able to work on the arm. All right, I got to this point. You can see I got my piece of wood on there. See what I did is on the back side, I just have a couple screws that I put through there. And I have some glue under there, so this way it's locked into place. And this thing is, now it's part of my form. The next step is I want to position, the head. Now I was gonna try to heat this up, but I'm pretty sure heating it up, it's just, I'm gonna deform it. It's not gonna look good, all that kind of stuff. So what I'm gonna do instead is what I've been working on is I took just a regular sander, and I'm slowly sanding a taper into there and a taper into this right here. And what I'm looking for is, like I said, I don't really want him looking down into the room. I don't necessarily want him looking at the ceiling. I'm trying to look at it as if this was flat on the wall and at almost a 90-degree angle of, him, naturally like looking into the room. That's kind of the angle I'm going for. I'm going just a little bit less than 90. So he's, because it's going to be up on a wall, so he's not going to be, he's going to be looking a little down, but I don't want him looking at the floor. So I think the angle I have right now is about what I want. All right, so what I'm going to be using, I just have a piece of copper pipe. Fits in here pretty good, and it also fits inside the skull pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use hot glue, and I'm going to try to hot glue it really good into place in here. I'm going to put a generous amount on here, so I push in so it kind of locks it into the bottom, and then I'm going to put a nice generous amount around here. That should lock that in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing, put a big old amount on the end of here, so when I push the head onto it, once I get it into the position I want and it cools down enough. little hot glue on that, just, you know, to kind of hold it in place until I can, you know, pour the epoxy down in there. All right, at this point, I you know, screwed it to my workbench so I can have it in the vertical position here. You can see this side, I have the one arm where it looks like it's going back into the pitcher, and I got some of the epoxy here, so that's why I have the clamp on there. It's gonna have to dry. And I got the other arm sitting right here. I'm figuring out placement of where I want the hand to sit. I have some marks on here of a rough idea of where I want it. I've started modifying the lantern. I've already bypassed the whole, you know, all the solar things. Pull the battery out. I have a nice long lead here of wire, so I can, you know, power that separately. So what I'm going to do now is, before I actually put steel in this arm and do all that, I'm going to attempt to completely encase the whole ball socket with epoxy, and same with down here where I have this line, and, you know, clamp it and let it sit overnight and see if just the epoxy and everything alone by itself would be enough to hold it without any issues. If it doesn't, then I will make some kind of support that I can put down here that'll kind of come out and kind of go down the back half of this arm, hopefully in a way to where it's not really noticeable. So I'm gonna get ready to start doing the position of the arm and see where I want to put it. Okay, last night I went ahead and, you know, bent the hand. Now I'm gonna have to sand it, smooth it out. What I did is I just used a lighter. You know, I just took a lighter and just put it under the joint to where I could just heat it up, bend it, and then dunk it in some cold water. I just got to touch it up a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. I went ahead and let that set all night. Now I was doing a little testing with it. I was just taking the thing and I was just kind of hanging it on here. And you can see it holds, but it does put a lot of stress. It wants to rotate it a lot. So I'm probably gonna have to do the steel reinforcement like I was talking about. So what I'll probably do is back here where you're not gonna see it, because what I'm gonna end up doing with this thing is, since I'm making it look like he's coming out the picture, I'm gonna be taking either some fabric or some paper or something like that, and I'm gonna be gluing it, you know, like kind of like this, to make it look like he's like tearing through it a little bit. So I'll use some of that to hide that rod. I think I'm gonna have to put some kind of reinforcement back in the back here with a rod that is gonna come through here. I'm gonna drill a hole, have it run through this arm, and then drill another hole and have it run through this arm. It's probably gonna have to really finesse it. And then what I'm gonna do is this way I can bend it and tweak it to the desired angle I need, because as you see, the longer it sits here, the lower and lower this is kind of getting toward my bench. And then I don't even have the hand on it yet. Now once that hand's on there and it's propped out a little bit further, it's going to have a little bit more stress on it. So, you know, I really want it to stay kind of up here, not so much down here. So, plus you can see it's also flexing the shoulder right here. It's compressing the ribs as it was going down. So, and actually this glue doesn't look like it held very well. It's actually just me messing around with it. Already done broke it. So I guess I am doing steel. Alright, I went and tore the arm apart because you know, it has this little ball socket here, and to sit there and just to, you know, try to drill a hole and snake the wire through there and bend it, I think it's gonna be hard. So I figured pulling it apart would be easier, because if I gotta have it all the way up, like say in this position right here, like I had it, it'd be easier for me to drill the hole here at a 90, and then bend my, you know, pre-bend my wire, and then just rest it down inside there, and then have it come straight out and bend like that, and then just put it back together. So that's the reason I took it apart. And I'm gonna be using this baling wire right here. I used this 2 years ago for the Ghostbuster Halloween cemetery thing I did, where I had the mannequin dressed up as a Ghostbuster with a proton pack. And this is what I used to make his arms with. I just had I had 2 of these side by side, and then just covered with poo noodles and you know, a pair of gloves. I was able to bend them and shape them and put them in the position, and it was able to hold, you know, the wand in the position that needed to be held in. So I think this will be more than strong enough to do what I'm going to do. I'm still going to double it, so this way I get a little more strength out. But this will be easier to work with than, you know, say something like that right there. So once I get this all kind of put together, before I reassemble it, I'll show you what I end up having to do.
All right, I'm gonna see if I can explain this, because this definitely wasn't easy as I was kind of expecting it to be. I started off by making a loop here. You can see where I made the loop, and I drilled a hole through the hand, and I slid it, you know, from, you know, this direction into it. So this way the lantern has something a little bit more stout to hold it than just the fingers. But that was the easy part. This is where the rest of it got really tricky. As you can see, I had to pull this bone apart too, because I realized that it was pretty kind of solid through here with all the little pins and screws. So you see where I had to run the wire up, run it, or follow the bone. You make sure I bend it around every little nook and cranny, and then drill my little hole for my 90 degree. And you see where I got the wire coming down here, and then that comes through, and because of the way the wrist has to be, it comes at an angle this way, just because of where the hole is drilled. So it comes around this side of this screw, curves back through this notch I made, goes all the way around this screw, comes out to about here, and then this is where it comes out at that angle. That's where it's going to go this direction into here. Now, am I going to be able to get 2 wires all the way through here? Probably not. So I'm going to at least try to get at least 2 inside this arm here, so this way I got good support for this part. So this way I can get over about it going down like this. So, and if I can get a second wire, maybe, I really don't think so, because there's just not enough room here for me to get 2 of those in there. Even with the other portion of this cap here, I mean, if I stacked it on top of it, you know, and then try to bend it maybe to go over here, I don't know. So, but if I can at least get 2 of them in this one, I think I'll be all right. So I'm going to start screwing everything back together and see how I'm going to make some kind of bracket system on the back side of my board here that I can shove these through and either weld them to a little piece of metal back here, or what I'm going to do. So, but I'm going to say this this one turned out a little bit more tricky than I was actually anticipating, but I like the challenge, so I'm going to keep going with it. Okay, so I was able to put 2 wires in here like I wanted to. I have it ran around, and what I did is I drilled a second hole in here, and I have it's not ran down into the arm, but it's ran to the end of the ball here. So this way it should give it a little extra, you know, from pivoting right there. But what I'm going to do before I put this back on, I'm heating up my glue gun, and I'm going to pump a bunch of glue in there. So when I shove that in there, I kind of create like a pocket of solid glue to help with that. And then I'm going to kind of glue these into place so I don't have to worry about them moving. And then I'll put the other piece back on, and then we'll go from there. Alright, I got the arm back in place. I got all the wire all ran inside. You can see where it's coming out the back here. Now, I made this joint here, or this notch here, so this way once everything dries, you know, to where it's stationary, I'm going to bend this upward so this way it meets the top of the notch, and this one meets the bottom of the notch. What that'll do is that'll give me a little bit more less chance of, you know, twisting, because it'll be further apart. And then I'm also on the back side, the excess there, I'm going to bend it this way so it's flat up against the back of the board. So what that'll do is that'll make it to where when I put the light on here, you know, before how it's kind of pulling on the shoulder, what that'll do is that'll eliminate it from pulling on the shoulder, and this will eliminate it from not only moving, you know, up and down, but hopefully from twisting side to side. But that you know, glue and all that stuff is going to take a good 24 hours to fully dry. So unfortunately I'm kind of done with it for the day. I'll just have to get back on tomorrow, but so far this is what I got going on. All right, I let the arm and everything dry overnight. You see what I did here is I took the wires and spread them apart like I was talking about doing. And I just took a piece of metal and cut notches in it. So this way I could run those through there. So this way that kind of locked them into that shape that they're in. They can't go up or down. Put a little tack weld on them. And then I also took another one of these and put on the backside. And that's where the screws are. Is I actually essentially sandwiched that against that wood. So now that's, that's part of the, the wood now. It's not moving. You see, even if I lift this lantern up, take the weight off it, you'll see the hand only moves up, maybe an inch at the most. So that's more than enough of support, for that. So I ain't gonna worry about that going anywhere. And then I got this hooked up to a little power supply real fast. So you see it has like that nice little flicker look, and it's kind of a older style lantern. What I'm probably gonna do is I'm probably gonna mist a little bit of black paint around the edges to kind of give it like that look of like the black soot. So this way it gives it a little bit even more of like an older kind of look to it. But the next thing is to work on my back area where it's supposed to look like the, it broke through a painting. And just in case anybody's kind of curious about what the whole green paint was about on it, a few years back I did a haunted house for my son's elementary school, and I did a prop that I called it my floating table. And what I did is I had 3 skeletons sitting at a like dining room table that I had set up on a pivot point with a counterweight. And what I would do is I had all this stuff covered in black light paint. These would kind of glow like a nice green. This was before like those little green ones were coming out. And the table had a nice tablecloth that would glow. And it just looked like it was floating up and down. Just in case anybody was kind of wondering what the whole green paint was all about. Playing with the lighting a little bit. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add an extra LED right here on his finger that I'm gonna kind of disguise, and I gotta do some more shadowing with some tape to figure out where I need to stop. But I want it to where it just lights up the face, because the lantern alone, you see, doesn't really light the face up too much. So I'm trying to find a way to put just enough light on there where his face is lit up, and that's it. Alright, well, I'm getting started on the section that's going to look like, he, has ripped through the picture. So what I did is I traced out the size of the picture frame. I made a whole bunch of markings on here of essentially where like the solid stuff is that I have to go around, and then just an overall shape of the skeleton in this area. I mean, you can't see it, now, but I got the pencil marks. And then what I did is I just made a bunch of random cuts there, so I can just flip it open like that. And I'm going to be putting it on there just to see how well it works. And if I like it, then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking this and getting myself a picture or like a poster or something like that. And I'm going to glue that poster onto this cardboard. And then what I'm going to do there, then I'll take a razor blade and I'll cut everything out. So when I fold it open, there'll actually be an actual picture where it looks like it's ripping through a picture. And then everything that would be behind that picture would be painted black. So that's what I'm working on for this part. Alright, I've got this kind of taped in place because I wanted to put it in place so I could start making some adjustments, like right here. I mean, I kind of don't want that much of the arm covered. I want to be able to see the arm coming out. So I'll probably be adjusting this one right here. The top one ain't too bad. I'll just get it to hang out a little further. Like these 2 top ones aren't too terrible. This one, I want to trim it to where you can see the shoulder, but not the wires. So I do got to adjust that one. And then as I come down here, I want to be able to see that, that backbone. So I'm going to be trimming this one a little bit. Maybe not see the entire thing, but, maybe something like this potentially. And then I want to be able to see a little more of this rib cage over here. So, I mean, I could always try to bend these out further, and I mean, that might give me a little more of what I want, like this. But I'm just going to make some little adjustments. But I do want it to where, you see a little bit of at a little bit of an angle. Like that one right there is actually not too bad because you can see the arm, but like this one completely buries the arm too much. So I'm going to work on making some adjustments on that. Right. So I started working on this a little more. Now what I did here is I found a poster and I couldn't really find what I wanted. So I found something kind of like the old, that kind. So what I did is I made it to where like at least this big thing right here, and then stuff like, these area right here, you'll still be able to see once these things are bent out. I just took some Elmer's glue, which, some areas ain't sticking very well. Probably have to put a little more glue on them. And then once I'm happy with them staying and sticking on there, then I'll bend these out and I'll go ahead and put that around there and see what it looks like. I'm still kind of working on this. Now that I'm getting everything bent up, there's a lot of areas like where I had to do a little extra gluing here because what's happening is as I'm bending them up, it's causing wrinkles, and I kind of want to get as many wrinkles out as possible. Kind of like right here, see where I'm bending it up? You see I'm getting this wrinkle right here. So what I'm having to do is I'm having to take a razor blade and just kind of cut it here, lift it up, put some more glue underneath there, and then kind of float it back into the picture to kind of make it look seamless. So, but I'm just one of those other little areas. Yeah, glue here I just did a few moments ago. Just trying to finesse this, get it just the way I want it, so it looks like it's being torn and not something with a bunch of weird areas, wrinkles and such like that. But shortly this will be completed, and then I'll be on to the next step. All right, I got the light mounted. See, I got the wire kind of ran up in here, down the backside here, through the arm, and then underneath the bottom here, and then ran down and out the back. So this way, when you're looking at it from the front, or even, kind of from the side profile, you don't see the wire at all. And you see where I kind of misted some black on that, on the inside. And then what I decided to do is I left this lens completely off. And what that did, that actually allowed enough light to come from there to light his face up a lot better, so I don't have to try to put that extra LED on there. Next is see where I kind of drew the circles around. I'm going to go ahead and paint all that area black, including him. And then what I'll do is I will figure out what I'm going to do with him after that, as far as if I'm going to kind of bring him back to his normal color, or maybe do like a little bit of a gold on him to kind of match the picture frame. Not sure yet. I'll have to figure that out. But I'm going to go ahead and get all that painted, and then after that I got to work on making the torn picture portion that's got to go on it. Alright, went ahead and painted the whole thing black. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some gold paint with the black, so this way it's not bright gold, but it's not black, but it'll make him stand out a little bit. I'm hoping to go for something kind of close to what the frame is, where it's not like a stick out kind of gold, but there is some gold in that frame. That's what I'm going to try to go with for him. So, see how this works. Alright, I went ahead and painted it. Now, it didn't quite turn out close to the frame. I probably should have been looking for more, maybe a bronze, kind of color, not so much as a gold color. But, I mean, it doesn't look bad. I might play with it a little more, I'm not really sure, but I mean, I kind of like the way it turned out. And then I also went ahead and ran the wires down to my little battery pack, and I have the switch here on the side. So I got this. Now the problem I ran into is, since this is already has like that flicker kind of candle looking thing to it, I wasn't able to use the actual little circuit board and everything that came with this, so I won't be able to do the whole timer thing like I was kind of hoping for. That's why I put the switch right here on the side where it's easy to get to, so we can turn it on and off. But I'm going to shut the lights off, and I want to see how well that gold stands out with that light now. All right. So you see, like I said, what I did is I left this side open so I can get more light through there. And you see it actually, it lights him up pretty good. I mean, he's not like, massively lit up, but I mean, he's lit up enough. So, next step is to kind of work on the back piece, and then I'm almost going to be done with this one. One thing I'm going to do here is, I think it looks too plain, you know, or just gold like that. So I'm going to take my spray gun and I'm going to try to regulate my trigger a lot, and try to outline, you know, like these lines, like right here, here, maybe the bottom side of the rib or something, you know, and then maybe like around here in the nose, maybe the knuckle areas, just to kind of give it a little more, you know, dimension to it, I guess you could say. So hopefully this works out. If not, I'll be repainting the gold and then starting over. Okay, I got the painting portion done. You can see I went ahead and blacked out the eyes. I think it just makes it look a little better, you know, a little more of a traditional kind of look that you see when you see, you know, skulls and stuff, where the eyes and nose area are blacked out. And then you see where I just kind of did the areas along the ribs and stuff like that, just to give it a little more, you know, dimension, you know, and stuff like that. So it kind of really highlights certain aspects of it. The next step is going to be, I'm going to be putting a headdress kind of thing on here, kind of like, not really like a full-on Grim Reaper cap, but something kind of like that. And what that's going to do is that's going to taper down, and that's going to hide, you know, the support back here, and then come across the shoulders. And then once that picture goes over top of it, it's going to hide a lot of that too. So that'll be one of the next things that has to go on there. And then after that, then the little picture that I made will go on there, and then the frame will go around that, and then it'll be pretty much done. I'm working on one last little detail before I get ready to start fully assembling this. The one thing I have is on the picture frame itself. You know, you always got the picture frame, you know, where the picture sits, you know, and you have your glass and you have your back piece. You have this little notch essentially here. This thing's about 3/8 of an inch deep. The problem I'm going to run into is, since my unit itself is actually attached to this plywood, and this plywood's going to go on the back side, that it pretty much exposes that entire notch. Now I have the picture that's going to go here, but that picture is only going to take up, you know, the thickness of that cardboard. So you're still going to see such a gap here. Not to mention, when I go to put the picture on here, and I'm going to put like some thumbtacks to hold it, you might end up seeing the thumbtacks. So what I decided to do is I took the original back piece and just cut a little bit out. So when this picture frame is on here, you can see it's going to add that last little bit to this frame. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this, like, I'm going to use that gold paint, but I'm going to heavily dilute it down to it's a really, really dark gold. So I have a little bit of a stair step from this to here. All that's going to do is that's just going to create that last little, I think, detail that's going to fill that gap to cover the edge of the picture, so you don't see any of the fastening details, and it's going to kind of make the frame appear bigger than it really is. So it's just a last minute detail that I'm going to do before the final assembly of the whole, you know, prop. Alright, I got this painted. I just really wasn't happy with the darker, you know, that I was going with, so I just kind of brought it back up to where it's just a tinted, a little bit darker than what the original gold was. Because what I decided to do is I just decided to take the frame, this nice little spot right here, and I just taped everything off and then painted that little area right here. So now I got a little bit of a transition to go from here to this part right here, which has a little bit of a decorative aspect to it, and then it'll go into the other piece. So it created a much better looking stair step, you know, or a much better you know, transition between the two. So I'm going to go with that instead of trying to make it as how dark I was doing it, because how dark I was doing it, I just didn't like it. I put some around it and I checked it and I just wasn't happy with it. So I decided just to go a little more on the brighter side and then just kind of use the frame as a little bit more of a transition piece. I got this all glued up last night. Let it dry overnight. Now you see I got the, the little trim going around it that just adds that little extra, border to it, which I think is really going to help out when it comes to, that transition, plus also hiding a little bit of the edge of the, the little picture that makes it look like that, how he's breaking through. So, one step closer. Okay, here's the finished piece. You see, I went ahead and put the little headpiece on. It's just some lightweight fabric that just kind of drapes down towards the back, just to kind of help mask some of the flat plywood in the back. You see, I got the picture to where all the edges are nice and glued down, so I have a nice look right there. As you saw earlier in the video, I got the lantern going. The lantern is has that nice little flicker to it. And you can see that little border kind of really made a nice little decorative detail. I think it just kind of boosted the size of the frame, and it gave me a nice little transition. Plus, like I said, it also was going to hide the little thumbtacks that I used to hold this picture to the wood. Now this frame is screwed to the plywood from the backside, so the picture won't be hanging from this frame, because it's like this cheap, almost plastic kind of frame. It's all gonna be hanging from the wood in the back, but it's all tied together as one unit. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, leave me a comment, tell me what you think of this particular piece. And like always, thanks for watching.